My name is Phil Gries, and I teach cinematography at BMCC. This is going on my 16th year, teaching here primarily 2 classes on Monday nights. Have you done your video yet? Okay, have you done your video?
I have a script.
You're going to bring it in? What'd you think?
Original.
Isn't that really cool to start the film that way? This was totally original, you know? Well, I always had a real penchant and an interest in filmmaking, and certainly like all of us, I grew up with movies and television, and I wanted to also be part of it. And at a certain point in my life, I decided to investigate more with regard to getting a camera. My parents bought me a Wallensack 8mm movie camera with 3 lenses. And in 1957, when I was 14, I shot my very first roll of film at Ebbets Field, the home of the Brooklyn Dodgers. That was the last year that team played in Brooklyn, and subsequently in 1958 they moved to Los Angeles. I also did home movies. I used my parents as actors, my brother, friends, put subtitles on films, and I did a whole host of different little productions as if I was working in the silent era. It was all set to just music, of course no sync sound, but editing these films. And it was really my opportunity to experiment with filmmaking. Eventually, I went to school for film production, went to CCNY, 1962, September, and graduated in January 1966 with a BA degree in film production. And then I went to UCLA, where I had the opportunity to earn a master's degree in theater arts motion picture production. If one decides that they want to go into this business to make a lot of money, that's the wrong reason. You really want to go into any expressive art because you have a passion for it. And that was my main goal. I wanted to do something I loved, and I always loved the camera, and I always loved being able to make film. Well, when I went to UCLA, I had a couple of real heavyweight directors of photography who were my teachers. Haskell Wexler I had, and he's a 2-time Academy Award winning DP. He was very inspirational to me. I had Floyd Crosby as a teacher for 2 classes. I was already set to go to Boston University for graduate work in film production. I was admitted, I had gone, I was already with a place to stay. And 2 weeks before the semester began, in January of '66, I got an acceptance to UCLA. So I had to go out to UCLA. Hollywood was beckoning. And that's where I ended up, and I stayed there for almost 2 years. And it's where I met my wife in LA. So everything was meant to be, you know, and then we're about to celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary. So it seemed to turn out okay.
It's really been a wonderful journey. We've lived in different places. We originally were living in California for 4 years. We lived in Wisconsin for 4 years, where Phil actually got work as a cameraman documentary at the PBS station in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So we were there for 4 years. And then moved back to New York in 1978. So from 1978, we've been living in New York. And Phil has so many wonderful gifts. He's certainly very creative in many, many, many ways. He's got a wonderful sense of humor, and he's so spontaneous. You never know when and he'll be spontaneous wherever he is. And I think one wonderful things about Phil that I really loved was his sense of humor. Philosophy of life, he was very lighthearted, and he appreciated just about everything. He was generous in what he gave with his heart, very giving person, very patient person, very understanding, tries to understand the other's point of view in terms of where they're at, he's not strict, and it's wonderful in a lot of respects in terms of he appreciates because he's teaching and been teaching for a number of years, where a student is coming from. He understands and he respects that, and if the student will even give a little bit of effort in something, he will give them credit for whatever it is, because he understands them from their point of view, and it obviously because he had been a student once himself. So he's very generous and very giving. He's a wonderful father. Probably, as I said, he's probably one of the most patient persons I know, in terms of giving from his heart. Very sensitive and loving and creative.
Really consider the film that we are looking at behind us as my first sync feature-length film. It was a documentary shot in Harlem in the spring of 1970. I was a school teacher in Harlem starting in September 1967. I taught for 3 years, the first 2 years at PS 24 on 128th, and Lex was between 5th and Madison. And I taught 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. And in the 3rd year, everybody moved to the school that relates to the film, Harlem School 1970. And I became the media coordinator, and I had a lot of ample time to be able to go around and shoot basically a day in the life. And that developed into a feature film that I finished in the summer of 1970, Harlem School 1970. I put that film away in a closet for 46 years, 47 years, and it was only recently that it was restored, digitized, restored, and it premiered in February of 2018 at the Paley Center. And I've taken the opportunity to go back and meet with some of my former students, having not seen them in 50 years.
I'm just looking at these photographs of Harlem School, of the children from Harlem School that he photographed, and he just recently, from 1970, that he just recently re-edited that film with a wonderful friend, and it is really wonderful in so many ways. And those stills that I'm looking at are so absolutely, they pop out at you because there is so much expression and life and a story behind each one.
The whole purpose of restoring it and putting a number of thousands of dollars into the restoration was to be able to have this direct cinema type of film time capsule. What was it like to be a student in Harlem at an elementary school from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock? And I went to numerous classrooms, and I documented the lunchroom, the play yard, and everything is edited into a 50-minute capsulated retrospective. No narration and no interviews. It was a pure direct cinema approach, which was at the end of the first century, the first decade of that type of filmmaking, which started in 1960. I think anybody in the arts wants to share what they're feeling, and cinematography was my way of being able to be expressive. I am terrible at drawing. I could not draw you a horse right now. It would look stupid. But I could observe something, and I could use a piece of equipment to capture that vision. So the camera was my outlet.
I don't even think I thought so much about the cinematography as a human being that I saw. That was more important than anything. So that came second. That always does. That's the number one with anything in life. It's not about what you do, it's who you are.